Bienvenue à tous au Sommet du Coaching 2021 et à la présentation « Les compétences en coaching de carrière pour les gestionnaires » avec Racialized et Nathalie Thériault, en partenariat avec la communauté de pratique interministérielle de carrière. Welcome to the Coaching Summit 2021 and this session, Career Coaching Skills for Managers with Racialized and Nathalie Thériault, in partnership with the Interdepartmental Career Community of Practice. My name is Philippe. I will be providing technical support for this session. Mon nom est Philippe et j'apporterai le support technique pour cette session. Avant de commencer, j'aimerais reconnaître les peuples autochtones qui, bien avant l'établissement des Français, ont interagi les uns avec les autres sur le territoire montréalais où je travaille et vis, et célébrer le souvenir de la Grande Paix de 1701. Ce traité signé à Montréal a établi une paix durable entre la France, ses alliés autochtones et la Confédération Haudenosaunee. Comme notre présentation est diffusée partout au travers le Canada, je vous invite à prendre le temps de reconnaître les Premières Nations là où vous êtes situés. Before we start, I would like to acknowledge the indigenous nations that prior and even after the establishment of the French encountered one another on the territory of the island of Montreal, where I live and work, and honor the memory of the Great Peace of 1701, a treaty that fostered peaceful relationships between France, its indigenous allies, and the Haudenosaunee Federation. As this is broadcast across Canada, I invite you to take the time to acknowledge the First Nations territories in your location. Quelques notes sur vos présentatrices aujourd'hui. Nathalie est coprésidente de la communauté de pratique interministérielle de carrière depuis 2017. Elle possède 14 ans d'expérience en ressources humaines à la fonction publique fédérale et est détentrice d'un baccalauréat en éducation et d'une maîtrise en orientation. Nathalie a occupé divers postes en ressources humaines, notamment en gestion de carrière, en apprentissage, en dotation, en gestion de rendement des employés et en relations de travail. Elle est actuellement conseillère principale en gestion de carrière à Services publics et Approvisionnement Canada. Elle est maman d'un garçon de 8 ans et belle-maman d'un garçon de 9 ans. Elle adore les voyages, la gastronomie et le camping. Bienvenue Nathalie.
Merci beaucoup Philippe.
Rachel est coprésidente de la communauté de pratique interministérielle de carrière depuis plus de 10 ans. Elle a débuté sa carrière à la fonction publique à Gatineau, à Patrimoine Canada. Et elle a ensuite travaillé au ministère des Finances depuis 2006. Elle travaille à l'APECA, donc l'Agence de promotion économique du Canada Atlantique, à Moncton, au Nouveau-Brunswick. Elle est gestionnaire des programmes corporatifs des ressources humaines. Graduée en éducation de l'Université de Moncton, Rachel possède une maîtrise en counseling éducationnel de l'Université d'Ottawa, un certificat de 2e cycle de l'Université de Sherbrooke sur le développement des individus au sein des organisations et une certification en coaching du Collège Erickson International. Rachel est également une maman de 2 ados, adore faire du camping et voyager avec sa famille et passe beaucoup de temps à faire des activités physiques dans la nature, vélo, raquettes, hiking et tout. Maintenant, bienvenue Rachel.
Hey.
Maintenant, place à vos présentatrices. Now to your presenters.
Un gros merci Philippe. Thank you for this great introduction. It's rare that we get formally, merci. It's rare that we get formally introduced like this. I felt like I was a minister there for a little bit. Nathalie, c'est un privilège pour moi de participer, de présenter avec toi aujourd'hui. Nathalie et moi étions collègues à l'APECA pendant plusieurs années et puis maintenant, elle est dans un autre ministère. On est coprésident de la communauté de pratique et puis c'est officiellement notre première fois depuis qu'on n'est plus officiellement collègues qu'on va présenter ensemble. Ça me fait un gros plaisir et chaud au cœur aujourd'hui de faire cette présentation avec toi.
Merci, pareil pour moi. C'est vraiment toujours bien de se retrouver. Bienvenue tout le monde. Je suis vraiment contente de vous accueillir. So welcome everyone. We're very pleased to spend the afternoon with you. It's a great topic. We're very passionate about it, and I think that we will bring a lot of our own personal experience as well through it, since Rachel was my manager for over 10 years at ACOA. So we will share how we manage those career conversations between the two of us so we could bring this to a more practical place possible. So throughout the presentation today, you can speak in the language of your choice. So please don't hesitate to use either the chat box or raise your hand, and Philippe will keep an eye on the participant list and will let you speak as you are all muted. So even if you're trying to unmute, it won't work. So Philippe needs to intervene. So vous avez l'option de demander les questions dans la langue de vos choix ou d'interagir dans la langue de votre choix. N'hésitez surtout pas de le faire. Tout au long de la présentation aussi, il va y avoir des interactions dans le chat. So we will ask questions in the chat box and then you could interact there. So please feel free to do it in the language of your choice.
We're going to make you work.
Yep, we're going to make you work. We want this to be interactive because we want this to be a little bit more practical, and that when you leave here that you have a mindset and understand a mindset needed to hold those career conversations. So we will also have probably a small break just at midpoint, just to keep the momentum and the energy going, because we know that, it could be a long time to be an hour and a half on Zoom. So in about 45 minutes or so, we'll take a small 5-minute break so you can go and refill that cup of coffee or get some more water. So I think that's it for the logistic and the housekeeping stuff. Est-ce que j'oublie quelque chose, Rachel?
Non, ça va.
Parfait. Donc, over to you.
All right. So, si tu veux aller à l'agenda, Nathalie, est-ce que tu partages ton écran?
Oui, j'essaie d'avancer, là, ça sera pas long. OK.
All right. So today we're going to be covering key points when it comes to having effective coaching conversations, career conversations. The first thing is why career conversations matter and how they situate themselves within the context. Your role as a career enabler, as managers, some of you here attending today may be managers, some of you may not be managers, but you'll recognize yourselves and be able to see what works for you in what we're presenting here today. We want managers to be able to understand how to empower their employees to become career owners, and yourself, if you're not a manager, to see how you can empower yourself to be to take ownership and be in the driver's seat for your career development. How to effectively lead career conversations, and we're going to give you practical examples with key career coaching questions, and we'll share some tools and resources along the way.
Donc, sans plus tarder, on va expliquer ou commencer par dire c'est quoi du développement de carrière? Parce que tout le monde, on a toute une définition qui est différente. On a toutes des expériences différentes avec le développement de carrière. Donc, une petite citation qu'on a ajoutée sur notre présentation, c'est « Lorsqu'une personne est embauchée pour être un employé de la fonction publique fédérale, elle devient fonctionnaire. C'est le poste qui contient le plus d'opportunités de développement de carrière. » On entend souvent des gens, soit à l'individuel, qui viennent nous voir, ressentent une pression. OK, bon, mais mon développement de carrière, c'est me rendre au prochain niveau. C'est peut-être trouver un nouveau salaire. Des fois aussi, c'est tellement se dévouer à la tâche, puis on pense qu'il y a quelqu'un quelque part qui va nous remarquer et nous offrir des opportunités sur un plateau d'argent. Donc, il y a plusieurs conception, si on veut, du développement de carrière. Mais à la base du développement de carrière, ce qu'il faut comprendre, c'est que c'est tout à propos de faire des choix. Donc, c'est des choix basés sur l'information que tu as au moment opportun où est-ce que tu as besoin de faire ta décision. Donc, c'est un choix basé sur ce qui se passe en ce moment dans ta vie personnelle et dans ta vie professionnelle pour arriver à un équilibre. Donc, c'est la constante recherche de l'équilibre, de trouver l'harmonie avec tous ces rôles de vie qui constituent du développement de carrière. Pour certaines personnes, oui, ça veut dire que aller au prochain niveau, c'est pour eux leur développement de carrière parce que c'est le prochain niveau qui va les satisfaire un petit peu plus. Puis il peut y avoir plusieurs raisons pour ça, mais ce n'est pas la finalité. La finalité, c'est vraiment un mieux-être, un sentiment de satisfaction. Donc, lorsqu'on travaille au niveau de notre carrière avec notre gestionnaire, par exemple, qui est la présentation aujourd'hui, c'est toujours pour voir, OK, est-ce que je suis satisfait dans ce que je fais présentement? Mais si je ne le suis pas, comment je peux retrouver cette harmonie-là? Quel choix est-ce que j'ai besoin de faire? Donc, parfois, ça veut dire, oui, grimper d'un échelon. Parfois, ça veut dire, j'aime pas utiliser le mot descendre d'un échelon parce qu'on se base ici sur notre système de classification, alors qu'avec la carrière, tu ne peux que progresser. Mais parfois, ça veut dire d'aller à un groupe et niveau inférieur. Donc, c'est vraiment une question de trouver l'harmonie. Donc, le développement de carrière, c'est difficile de trouver une définition en soi qui va représenter tout, mais lorsqu'on garde en tête que c'est tout d'abord aller chercher de l'information pour prendre des décisions, ben, et trouver une harmonie, trouver ce qui me satisfait, ben à ce moment-là, on part tout sur la même base. Ma définition de développement de carrière, où est-ce que moi, je veux amener ma carrière n'est pas pareil que Rachel, par exemple. Donc, c'est pour ça que notre définition pourrait être la définition n'est pas nécessairement différente, mais les buts seront différents. Donc, c'est là qu'il faut travailler et s'apporter. Donc, on dit dans le fond que c'est un processus continu tout au long de la vie qui prend en considération l'apprentissage, le travail, les passe-temps, parce que la carrière, c'est aussi un concept qui englobe tes activités de la vie personnelle aussi. Donc, est-ce que mon travail me permet d'avoir une harmonie avec mes buts personnels et mes aspirations personnelles également? Donc, c'est constamment gérer ces transitions-là aussi dans notre vie. Puis c'est toujours dans le but de travailler vers un futur préféré ou un futur de choix qu'on s'est donné. Donc, ça, c'est un peu le développement de carrière. Donc, lorsque vous abordez vos employés avec cette optique-là, c'est toujours voir, OK, mais pour toi, c'est quoi ton développement de carrière? Qu'est-ce que ça veut dire? Selon toi. Donc, de toujours partir des perceptions. Donc, ces perceptions-là de qu'est-ce que le développement de carrière, c'est aussi unique à chacun. Et quand on prend maintenant, d'accord, donc, mais qu'est-ce qu'une conversation de carrière maintenant? Eh bien, c'est pas nouveau, c'est pas un nouveau concept qu'on vous introduit aujourd'hui. Les conversations de carrière, ça fait très longtemps que ça se passe. Qu'on le veuille ou qu'on ne le veuille pas, c'est des choses qui sont là. Ce qu'on dit aux gestionnaires, c'est que oui, vous avez une responsabilité d'avoir des conversations de carrière avec vos employés. Jusqu'à maintenant, le gestionnaire a eu cette responsabilité-là, mais n'était pas nécessairement équipé pour avoir des conversations. Puis ça, c'est notre rôle ici à la communauté de pratique, c'est justement d'équiper les gestionnaires dans la fonction publique pour avoir des conversations de carrière efficaces. Puis aujourd'hui, c'est ce qu'on va faire avec vous. On va vous montrer quelques petites techniques de coaching ou des questions de coaching pour justement venir stimuler vos conversations, les enrichir, les rendre beaucoup plus efficaces pour que vous sachiez justement quel type de questions poser. Donc, lorsqu'on dit une conversation de carrière, c'est tout simplement une discussion entre un employé et son gestionnaire qui aide l'employé à établir ses objectifs professionnels et un plan d'action pour les atteindre. Et les rôles, le rôle de l'employé, ce qu'on partage, c'est que l'employé, c'est lui qui est le maître de sa carrière. C'est lui qui est responsable de choisir c'est quoi les objectifs professionnels qui lui conviennent, tout en considérant l'harmonie et l'équilibre qu'il veut atteindre dans sa vie. Le rôle du gestionnaire, c'est tout simplement de guider l'employé à prendre sa carrière en main. Donc, lorsqu'on dit au gestionnaire, mais ça ne repose pas sur toi, ces décisions-là. Ce n'est pas à toi de prendre les décisions. Toi, tu guides. Puis, on va les voir vos rôles un petit peu plus tard dans la présentation. Les conversations de carrière, qu'on le veuille ou qu'on ne le veuille pas, ça va se passer. c'est quelque chose que je suis 100% certaine que chacun et chacune d'entre vous qui est là aujourd'hui, vous avez eu des conversations de carrière avec vos gestionnaires et vous allez probablement en avoir avec vos employés ou vous n'avez déjà eu. Donc, c'est quelque chose qui fait partie de la culture à la fonction publique. C'est un exercice qui est considérable, qui est important. Donc, c'est pour ça qu'on en parle. On associe souvent les conversations de carrière à la gestion de rendement. Parce que, justement, depuis la mise en œuvre de la directive sur la gestion de rendement, qui est engrenée, si on veut, dans cette directive-là, qu'on doit avoir des conversations au niveau du développement des employés. Donc, on a associé les deux exercices comme étant le même. Toutefois, c'est vraiment différent. C'est deux exercices différents. Ta discussion de rendement, quoi qu'elle va te permettre de donner de l'information importante à l'employé à considérer dans son développement de carrière. Donc, la rétroaction donnée par rapport au rendement ne devient pas une finalité en soi à prendre en considération pour le développement de carrière. C'est vraiment des facteurs. On va partager les forces de l'employé, par exemple, nos observations, de la rétroaction, des suggestions, mais ce n'est pas une discussion de carrière en soi. Les conversations de carrière également, c'est soit que c'est vous qui allez les organiser ou que c'est l'employé qui va vous approcher pour les avoir. Dans les deux cas, l'exercice est le même. Les questions peuvent être les mêmes, mais il y a peut-être un élément ici, préparation, qui ne sera pas pareil si vous n'êtes pas au courant de ce que c'est ou si vous n'êtes pas bien équipé et qu'un employé vous surprend en vous demandant une conversation de carrière, ça peut mettre un peu de pression sur le gestionnaire puis dire, OK, oui, je veux, mais comment je le fais? Mais soyez pas surpris que les employés, parfois, prennent les devants et disent, bon, ben moi, j'aimerais parler de ma carrière avec toi. Et si c'est le cas, si jamais que les employés vous approchent de cette façon-là, à quelque part, parce qu'ils vous font confiance, ça veut dire que vous avez déjà créé un lien avec les employés parce que s'ouvrir au niveau de sa carrière, ça ouvre une porte de vulnérabilité parfois pour les employés. Ça ouvre un petit coin de réflexion qu'ils ont besoin d'avoir. Donc, soyez un peu flattés de cette demande-là, si jamais que les employés la font, parce que ça veut dire qu'ils vous font confiance à quelque part. Parce que la carrière, c'est tellement un élément personnel et propre à chacun que c'est s'exposer lorsqu'on veut parler de notre carrière. On va parler de nos plans et de toute l'interconnexion qui peut se passer entre les divers facteurs dans notre vie personnelle et notre vie professionnelle. Donc, il faut ouvrir un pan de nous-mêmes qu'on n'est peut-être pas prêt. Et quand ils le font, ça veut dire qu'ils sont prêts de le faire avec vous. Donc, c'est une bonne chose si jamais les employés vous demandent d'avoir ces conversations-là. Toutefois, aujourd'hui, on va vous montrer comment être plus proactif avec l'exercice et comment l'approcher.
Nathalie, je vais me permettre de t'interrompre juste là parce que I'll interrupt you right here because I just want to summarize some of the key points in English that you've just.
Go ahead.
We're so passionate about these topics that once we start talking, we want to say so much. So Natalie, I'll just recap some of the key components here that you've mentioned. So when it comes to what is career development. Basically, career development. That's the hard thing with career development and career conversations is that there's not one common definition, not one common agreed upon, defined way of saying what exactly, and that's why there's many terms: career development, career management, career, how to effectively do all of that. But really, at the end of the day, what Natalie was mentioning in French is that it all comes down to the art and science of making decisions that have an impact on your career. And career development is about setting the stage for a future state. So being satisfied in your career starts with being satisfied in the role that you're playing right now, within your job, within your organization, within your contribution to what you can bring to the workplace and your professional roles. So basically, that's the art and science of making informed decisions that will best match all of these different elements. What is a career conversation? A career conversation has, is when the manager and the employee, in this context, because that's the setting that we're putting it in, managers are expected to be having career conversations. However, I can't, and I've been the co-chair of the community of practice for many years, and I've been in different organizations, and I can't say that I've seen that we've really equipped managers to be able to have these career conversations or to feel equipped to have them, but we're still all having them. As managers, we know that when we have a new employee join our team, we have a discussion with them in terms of who they are, what their interests are, and who they want to be and what they want to do in the public service. That's a career conversation. Natalie gave some examples that sometimes managers think they're having a conversation about their employees' careers or having a career conversation with their employees when they're having, because it's usually linked in and mixed with the exercise of performance management. So you're having a conversation, providing feedback on your employees' performance, but that's one piece of information. It's providing information on their performance, which will allow them to gather information that will inform their career decisions. But it's not in and of itself a career conversation. So having the career conversation takes it one step further in terms of bringing it back to the employee and asking these key questions in terms of, so how's it going for you? How satisfied are you with the roles that you have right now within the organization? Where else do you see yourself? And those are just some, and we're getting ahead of ourselves here. Those are just some examples of some of the questions that we'll be sharing with you in terms of a toolkit for effective career conversations. So the next slide is on career management, a shared responsibility, and this is the foundation. That's our motto in our community of practice on career, because this is really the foundational piece. My career is too important to be left in the hands of my employer. We saw that as a quote at the beginning of our presentation. Employees need to feel equipped and have the mindset to take ownership for their career development. Managers have to be equipped and have the mindset to be able to support employees and be the career enablers that will help the employee develop their career and bring their full self, a human-centric approach to these conversations. And the organization is often a forgotten piece, and it's a very important piece of the equation, because you can have the best relationship with your manager and have effective career conversations, but if the organization in which you're currently, if your job there, organizations need to have practices in place that will support your career. They need to have a career culture in place that will allow you to feel as though you can progress, you can develop, you can expand beyond what is expected of you, and really bring your full self to the organization. And sometimes that's possible within your current box, job description, and sometimes it's not. And the manager sometimes has the flexibilities to allow you to expand beyond that, and sometimes they don't. And that's where it's important that you seize the opportunities that are available to you and recognize that there's potential limits. So it's certainly that strategic partnership that's critical when it comes to career management. Donc c'est vraiment ce partenariat stratégique entre les différents rôles, le gestionnaire comme étant un catalyseur de carrière, l'employé qui prend en charge sa carrière et l'organisation qui est là pour soutenir le développement de la carrière de l'ensemble de ses employés. Ça, c'est la vision de base et c'est vraiment là-dessus qui est la fondation pour tout le reste. Maintenant, on superpose à ça les composants qui touchent vraiment comment ça se passe, le développement de carrière. So on top of that, we we want to show you here that the three fundamental pieces as in career development, as career professionals that we are, when we meet with clients for career, career coaching or career counseling, and it's no different for you as a manager when it comes to these lens. It's really supporting employees to gain a better self-awareness, and you yourself as a manager to gain self-awareness, gain a better understanding of the workplace and some of the opportunities in this public service. This is why we say, as a public servant, you have the most career development opportunities, because it's with the multitude of options that are available to us as public servants, it's sometimes hard to figure out how to navigate that. And the third piece that's often also forgotten is the environmental and societal piece, that lens. And that includes your other roles that you may have. Yes, you're a professional and you're in the public service. That's your job. But you also have other titles. You also have other roles, and which will have an impact and which will influence your career decisions. So we call those influencers. We've seen over the past year a huge shift with the pandemic, the future of work concepts that we were talking about, that, beyond 2020, which we thought would take years to get there. Over the past year, we've lived through some of those transformational changes, which allows Natalie and I and all of you to be connected across the country in a way that was not possible before. These things have an impact on our careers. The societal shift and movement that we've seen over the past year with the Black Lives Matter movement and other movements, which has opened up opportunities and has for some individuals feel compelled to really be a key player in that sphere. Well, that's having huge impacts on career decisions and potential career development path for certain individuals. So we're seeing that, and within our organizations, we're looking at our systemic barriers. We're looking at putting in place programs and career development initiatives, the clerk's call to action when it comes to supporting the development of our workforce. Those are all huge pieces that have a deep impact on an individual's career decisions. So that's in this model, it shows the interconnectivity between those different components that have a direct impact on your career development and that shared responsibility. Nathalie, voulais-tu résumer ça en quelques mots en français?
Oui, je peux le résumer. Donc, ici, nous avons superposé, suite à notre vision, un peu les étapes qu'on passe à travers avec nos clients, mais aussi ce que vous allez discuter avec les employés. Donc, au niveau du développement de carrière, la base, c'est toujours d'apprendre à mieux se connaître. Donc, d'être conscient de ses forces, de ses faiblesses, d'un peu tout ce qui nous touche. Puis, c'est un peu là le lien qu'on peut faire avec la gestion du rendement, parce que la rétroaction qu'on reçoit vient justement améliorer notre connaissance de soi sur certains aspects. Il y a aussi la connaissance du marché du travail ou de l'environnement de travail dans lequel on se trouve. Donc, c'est souvent un obstacle au niveau du développement de carrière, de ne pas savoir où est-ce que je peux contribuer à ma pleine valeur. Donc, aussi le milieu de travail, qu'est-ce qui est disponible? Donc, les gestionnaires viennent jouer un rôle à ce niveau-là en donnant l'information pour les employés. Et ensuite, un peu tout ce qu'on a vécu aussi durant la dernière année, tous les impacts environnementaux et sociétals qu'on a passé à travers, vient aussi influencer la carrière des employés. Donc, comme Rachel le mentionnait, le fait qu'on peut connecter aujourd'hui d'un bout à l'autre du pays, peut-être qu'un an passé, ça n'aurait pas été possible. Mais puisqu'on a passé à travers un gros changement de société, tout le monde ensemble, ça a apporté justement ces changements-là qui vont avoir des impacts sur la carrière. Quels seront-ils? On ne le sait pas encore, mais c'est garanti qu'il va y avoir des impacts. Mais tout ça vient influencer. Donc, l'information que je retrouve au niveau du marché du travail ou de mon environnement de travail, l'information au niveau de l'environnement, de la société dans laquelle j'évolue, et aussi l'information que je reçois à mon égard au niveau de ma conscience de soi vient en sorte ou vient me donner les informations dont j'ai besoin pour prendre des décisions de carrière. Donc, c'est un peu ça le modèle superposé qu'on a affiché ici. All good, Rachel?
Oh, indeed. Some managers. Now we're going to turn, let's see, we're going to try to navigate to find, we have some questions that we have for you. Whether you're a manager or not,
I will post them in the chat.
Yeah, Natalie's going to put some, or I can put them in the chat, Natalie, if you want. I have them right here.
Okay.
So I'm going to turn to you, and I'm going to ask this question in the chat. In your career journey, give us some examples of behaviors and mindset that you've experienced from the past managers, from your past managers, that limited your career development. And we don't want names, we don't want specifics, but just examples of behaviors and mindsets that limited your career development. Donc, je vais poser aussi la question en français. Dans votre propre cheminement de carrière, donnez-nous des exemples de comportements ou de mentalités que vous ressentez de la part que vous avez pu potentiellement ressentir de la part de gestionnaires passés qui ont limité le développement de votre carrière. Je vais laisser le temps aux gens là, de trouver le bouton chat. Donc, ce que je vois déjà, what I'm seeing already in the chat, some of those limiting behaviors and mindsets from managers, vague or non-existent feedback, discouraging a chosen desired path, managers wanting to impose their own view of how you should be doing your career, blocking an assignment in another department, not allowing you to go and further develop those skills, no interest in what makes me come alive or the strengths I bring to the role. Mm-hmm. Your career is not my problem. That's it. Managers, it's some managers still don't understand
the shared responsibility.
If I may put it bluntly, their responsibility.
Yep.
Exactly. Having a talent management plan, but no discussions held at the director level to support. Être un employé contractuel, ne pas être au courant de l'éventail de mes compétences, ni sembler intéressé. Gender bias for certain roles. Mm-hmm. Do not have a CPA, so sometimes limitations that can entail when you're moving up in a stream, a certain stream. Complete unresponsiveness to requests for help to grow and learn. Pure discrimination and entrenched department. 100% focused on production or output. Some managers think their job is to produce and to deliver and we're seeing that that shared responsibility of supporting the human resources. That's why sometimes I wonder if managers understand their responsibilities when it comes to, and the word human resources. We are the resources that allows us to deliver on our priorities. Favoritism, ça c'en est un commun, le favoritisme. So now, and I know that we could go all day with those limiting behaviors and mindsets. Now I'm going to ask you to switch gears here a bit. Can you share some examples of behaviors and mindsets from managers that were supportive of your career development? that you've experienced yourself, some of those behaviors that really helped you along the way, and some of those examples from past managers that you've had in your own careers. Donc, en français, je vais vous demander, dans votre propre cheminement de carrière à vous, donnez-moi des exemples de comportements, de mentalités que vous avez expérimentés de la part de vos gestionnaires passés qui vous ont aidé, qui vous ont soutenu dans le développement de votre carrière. Donc, j'en vois ici, helping me identify opportunities that I wasn't seeing for myself. Mm-hmm. Talking through options, being willing to talk about the same topic more than once. Some people are saying 13 years, still waiting, haven't had that support yet.
That's common. That's common.
Yeah, unfortunately. Authentic interest in fostering a growth mindset. And we hear a lot about that growth mindset. And managers themselves, when they adopt that growth mindset, will feel better equipped to have those authentic conversations with their employees, because it's not about what they know or it's not about talent hoarding, and it's not about limiting your employees' chances of maybe getting promotions that will end up, maybe they're going to be a director and you're the manager. And that's a growth mindset. Having employees reach their full potential and seeing that as your core responsibility as a manager. To me, and Natalie and I said that we'd share some personal examples along the way. As a manager, I see nothing that is a greater responsibility than supporting the development of my team, my colleagues, my staff. I hesitate to refer to them as my staff, because to me, they're my colleagues. And if I can support their development and help them see their superpowers, and she's gonna laugh because I always go back to that analogy, is where do you see yourself contributing the most to this job and to this organization and to this public service? I'll share an example that happened to me. I was fresh out of, I was actually still in university, and I joined the public service at Canadian Heritage, as I mentioned, and my supervisor that was supervising my internship, very first conversation, asked me, what do you want your legacy to be in the public service? How do you see your role in the public service? I was new to the public service. I had no idea what he was talking about. I had no idea. I kept referring to myself as a little fish. I come from Atlantic Canada, so our references are often linked to to the ocean. I kept referring to myself as a little fish in a huge ocean that was sometimes even afraid to get eaten alive by the bigger fishes, and not knowing where I could navigate and being lost. So I went back. I was going back to university with my counterparts, and they were having discussions in terms of, oh yes, my objective for my internship is to do this, to deliver X number of this. And I would go, my objective for my internship is to try to find out what my role is in the public service. Like that what does that mean? And I remember it was so hard. Like I was so lost. And then at some point I got it. Like I got that was the beginning of the mindset that I needed to have to empower myself to create the role and to take ownership for that career that I wanted in the public service. But without that sort of nudging and without that conversation, and it started off that way. And along the way, I did get other managers that, you know, some of them were not supportive of my career aspirations, and we didn't have any career conversations at all. It was just, here's what we expect of you, do your job, and that's it. I was lucky if I was getting any feedback. So I did experience both sides of the coin. So thank you for sharing all of these examples. Merci d'avoir partagé ces exemples parce qu'on a tous soit vécu des expériences positives avec nos conversations de carrière ou des expériences plutôt négatives ou même l'absence de conversation de carrière qui fait en sorte qu'on se questionne à savoir est-ce que mon organisation, représentée par mon gestionnaire, a un intérêt réel dans qui ce que je suis comme individu et qu'est-ce que je peux apporter à l'organisation. Et ça, à la base, ce sont des conversations de carrière. So yes, that term superpower is anyone that's ever been in my path knows that that's my go-to. What are your superpowers, and how can you build on those superpowers and really maximize your career around those superpowers? So building on the strength of the individuals. So yeah, when you look at,
just to share my experience with you, Rachel, on that one. Because I would say that even up to this day, I think that you were the toughest manager that I had, and not because the work was hard, that the work was amazing and it was great, but with all those questions, you know, it makes it hard to know that, okay, so I need to position myself, but it was a good hard. It was a very empowering hard, you know, having to face those questions. But in regards of superpower, one of the behavior or mindset that I've seen or experienced with you was that you believed in me more than I believed in myself sometimes. So that helped me build that confidence, knowing that my manager had truly confidence in me, and I would say even blind confidence sometimes. I felt the imposter syndrome a lot of the time, but I never felt alone in this. And that was the difference, you know, of, you know, being dumped on or being being faced with found your superpower, and I trust that you will, and I trust that you will do the best that you can, and I have your back. So that was my experience, and with those superpower, and it worked great, you know, and we will talk more about those superpower during this presentation as well, because this is where your focus should be.
And as a manager, there's nothing that makes me more proud than to know that it was hard. It's a good hard.
It builds character for sure. Donc, oui, Philippe, je vois que tu as écrit « C'est presque l'heure de la pause ». Peut-être qu'on peut prendre une pause de 5 minutes tout de suite avant de commencer la prochaine diapo. So, let's take a break, 5 minutes, so you can refresh and gather some more coffee or go grab some water if you need to. So, 5 minutes. So, it's now 2:13 Eastern time. So, let's get back here at 18, wherever you are. Thank you.
Je suis en train de tout lire les commentaires. I'm reading through all the chat. It's great.
C'est vraiment des bons exemples, oui.
Oui.
On va avoir une copie du chat, Rachel, aussi à la fin.
Excellent. C'est déjà un bon signe qu'on a des participants qui disent qu'ils veulent partager cette session à des gens. There's some key messages here that some people would like to share with with others, which is good.
So we had the question of where the session recording will be held after the session conclude. Donc, on a eu la question où sera entreposée la session enregistrée à la fin. Et Philippe nous a gentiment répondu dans le chat que ce sera sauvegardé sur YouTube, puis sera disponible à partir de la page du réseau du coaching. So the recording will be posted on YouTube once the summit is over on the Coaching Network page.
And that's Philip's superpower, so he's going to make that happen.
Thank you, Mark, for liking our bilingual free-flowing of all this. We're in the Atlantic region, so it's something that we do all the time, going from one language to another.
It's a good thing that we're trying not to actually speak in one language and then in the other, and not combine the two as is commonly known around here as shit. We can do that too, but we're at least going to try to stay in the flow, in the free flow style instead.
And we forgot to mention that we're in the Atlantic region, Rasha. So Rachel and I are from the.
Philip did when he introduced us. Yes.
Okay.
Well, I don't know about you, but yeah, we should have mentioned that.
We live 5 minutes apart, so.
Yeah, when Philip said that it was starting at 1:30, I was like, no, it's 2:30 here.
Yep, 2:30. An hour later.
It's 3:18 right now, and near Milan, or it's
half an hour later.
All right, so it's 3:18.
Véronica, on parle franglais. Yes, let's start, or let's continue the presentation. So now, maintenant, votre parcours en tant que catalyseur de carrière. Regardons maintenant votre expérience. So let's focus on you now. Une question qu'on aimerait justement que vous pouvez le répondre par vous autres-mêmes ou le répondre dans le chat. Comment voyez-vous votre rôle dans le parcours de carrière de vos employés? So how do you see your role in your employees' career journey? Don't forget that they will be with you for a short period of time. Don't even expect that they will remain under you for all their career. Donc, c'est vraiment un mythe de penser que les employés vont rester avec vous pour la vie. Donc, j'aime souvent dire aux gestionnaires, you don't own anybody. Tu n'appartiens pas à personne. If they want to go, they will go. But the journey, the time that they will have spent with you, whether it's a year, 2 years, 10 years, at some point they will go. But how do you want to be remembered as a manager? Donc, à un certain moment donné, vos employés vont passer à d'autres choses. C'est de savoir de quelle façon est-ce que vous voulez qu'ils se souviennent de vous. Donc, vous pouvez l'inscrire dans le chat. How do you see your role in the career path of your employees? Donc, comment voyez-vous votre rôle dans le parcours de carrière de vos employés? Donc, c'est vraiment important de se situer au niveau comme gestionnaire, dans notre style de gestion, quel rôle on veut se donner avec nos employés. Donc, on a des réponses un peu qui commencent à rentrer. Donc, cheerleader and guide. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, in what way do you want to be talked about? Que les employés soient prêts pour la prochaine étape. Tout à fait. Ils sont là, vous les prenez, vous les façonnez si on veut, et vous les envoyez prêts à la prochaine étape de leur carrière. Challenge them, guide them, help them reflect. Yes. Don't forget that employees leaving your team are becoming ambassador of your team. So if most of the time, employees, when accepting a position, will also do their search about the manager. I hope you know that, and I certainly hope that you do that for yourself as well. Trust is a big thing, Mark. Absolutely. Trust them. So you have to know as a manager, what's your role? What role do you want to play? And what type of support I'm able to provide. So one interesting statistics that we have retrieved from Public Service Employee Survey 2020, so the very latest one. So I've looked at the results, and I've seen that when it comes to useful feedback received by my direct supervisor, employee seems to be pretty much satisfied in the public service. So 77% says that, they receive useful feedback. Donc, dans le sondage au niveau pour les employés de la fonction publique, recevoir de la rétroaction utile de la part de son superviseur immédiat sur le rendement au travail, les réponses étaient plutôt positives. Donc, 77% de satisfaction à ce niveau-là. Au niveau de soutenir les aspirations professionnelles, encore 77%. So to support career aspiration, they are satisfied with at 77% that they received immediate support from their manager or supervisor. Where we see a different score is when it comes to my department or my workplace organization. We'll put everything in place to support employees' professional development. And that's 61%. So it's lower. Employee feels that their organization is supporting them less than their supervisor. So I think that speaks to a different level. One is they have confidence in their direct supervisor. I think that they might have established that. But if you look at your role, what role do you have to play to provide information about the organization to the employee so that 61% increases? Or how are you passing by those feelings that the employee has at the organizational level? Are you being a good advocate? Est-ce que vous représentez bien vos employés au niveau organisationnel? Est-ce que vous transmettez ces informations-là au niveau organisationnel qui vient démontrer justement l'insatisfaction? 61%, n'oubliez pas que c'est tout près de 40%. C'est énorme. 40% de la fonction publique qui dit qu'ils ne se sentent pas, qui sentent pas que leur ministère ou leur organisation soutient le développement des employés. So,
and it's interesting because when you drill a little bit deeper into those stats, new employees to the public service, this number is about in the 80%. So the honeymoon phase of like my department does a good job at supporting my career development lasts for 3 years. After 3 years, we see these numbers drop drastically to the 60%. So that's, to me, telling a huge story there. Our new employees come in, they're ambitious, they have, they want to bring their full self to work, they have their superpowers, they're ready to contribute. And then they're like, okay, my learning curve, so I'm learning a lot, so I'm here. And then year 1 passes, and then year 2 passes. And then year 3, they're starting to go, okay, well, maybe this isn't quite what I thought I had signed up for. And now that probably means that close to 40% of our workforce are not fully contributing to their full capacity and their full potential because they don't feel that they have the support to do so. They're not bringing their full superpowers to the table. And that's, to me, that's very concerning. And as a manager, I find that I have a responsibility in that. I have a responsibility to be the link between the employees and the organization. And we're going to see that. So Natalie, if you want to go to the next slide, because I know time is flying, and I want to make sure that we get to the toolbox. So I'm gonna try to drive this. We're gonna kick it into a little faster gear here. So.
Responsabiliser les employés à devenir maîtres de leur carrière. On vient de parler des rôles que vous vous donnez. Le rôle principal que je dirais, ou premier qu'on devrait mettre l'accent dessus, c'est de responsabiliser les employés. Quand on responsabilise les employés, parfois aussi, il y a un élément d'insatisfaction qui décolle parce que souvent, les employés pensent que c'est les gestionnaires qui doivent gérer leur carrière. S'il n'y a rien qui se passe avec leur carrière, ils sentent que c'est à cause du gestionnaire. So if we are empowering employees to really be career owners, now they truly understand their power that they have over their career, and they don't see you as, my manager has all the answers to my career. That's certainly not the role that you should have. So you should tell them, you are the in the driver's seat of your career, and I'm here to guide you, but I'm certainly not here to drive the car for you. So it's really just to provide, pour donner aux employés les moyens de prendre en charge la révolution de carrière et leur plein potentiel. Donc, quand on redonne la responsabilité aux employés, c'est ce qu'on crée. Donc, c'est vraiment de dire, ou même de réfléchir sur sa propre expérience. Est-ce que nous-mêmes, en tant que gestionnaire, on se sent responsable de notre carrière? Est-ce que nous-mêmes, on sent qu'on est dans le siège du conducteur de notre carrière? Et d'agir à ce niveau-là. So, next slide.
I was just mentioning that the manager is the link between the employees and the organization. Leadership development, talent management, succession planning, futures of work strategies, performance management, learning plans. Those are all organizational tools and systems, and they're all a manager's responsibility. The missing piece often in these responsibilities is the career conversations. When I hear, and I'm responsible as a manager, I'm responsible for the corporate function of performance management, talent management for EXs for all employees. And I see some managers tell me that they have a talent management plan in place for an employee, that they've written up a talent management plan. And I say, okay, so how does the employee feel about this talent management plan? Because you've assigned them that they're, I don't know, ready for advancement or comfortable in current position. And I go, okay, so how did that conversation go? And they go, no, we didn't talk about it. I just filled this out. I'm like, well, what do you what do you mean? How can you answer for the employee if they're mobile or not, especially in this context? How can you answer for the employee that they feel well placed in the role? Yes, you have a role to play to assess potential, and you do have a role to play at the end of the day to assign, and I don't want to reduce the talent management exercise to only assigning the placement, because there's talent management to me is much broader than that. When it comes to aligning the talent to the organizational needs. But the career conversation is the piece that connects all of these pieces together. And the manager is the connector between the employee and the organization. So if you're going to be talking about succession planning, you need to have the conversation with the employees to see if they're even interested. And too often, as Natalie mentioned before, our classification system has created a culture within our big organizations of public service of Canada that everyone wants to move up. And that if you're a PM2, your next step is a PM3. And if you're, and everyone wants to become an EX. And that's not true. And not only is it not true, but it's not the best use of our talent. We have some experts in the public service that should remain experts, that shouldn't feel the pressure to become a manager, that should not feel as though to be recognized and valued, the only next step is to move up. Because then, and I'm sure you've heard this a lot before, it's a double loss for our organization. We're losing a great expert, we're gaining maybe a good manager, maybe a mediocre manager. So it's the culture, the career culture that we're referring to, and that's where your role as a manager starts, with having the career conversations with your employees to see what's right for them, how they see themselves in this picture. Next slide. All right, so we're going to be doing a rapid fire exercise here in the chat very quickly. We're going to be giving you examples of the different types of employees, because everything that we've just said so far, in principle, I'm pretty sure everyone here, especially if you're here today, it's because your mindset's is already aligned with what we're sharing here. But as a manager, we have all sorts of colleagues working with us, and we cannot have a one-size-fits-all approach to our career conversations, to these topics. So what we're going to be doing here is asking you, depending on who you're talking to, you need to know who your employees are, you need to know what their drivers are, and you need to have a sense of what the focus of the career conversation should be. So we're going to give you, and yes, this is summarizing it very quickly, and yes, the answer is always it depends, and it's broader than what we're just sharing here. But for the purpose of the rapid fire exercise, we're going to ask you to really just think about quickly the first thing that comes to your mind when it comes to these specific employees that we're going to give you examples of, and there's many more. We're just giving you examples. Tell us what, if you were a manager, or if you are a manager, what would be the focus of the career conversation if you were having a conversation with, and we're going to give you, with a new employee, what would be the focus of the conversation if you were having a career conversation with a new employee? What would be the focus of that conversation? Orientation to the public service.
Donc, on pourrait peut-être résumer en disant orientation, c'est la formation indispensable. Donc, Véronique mentionne aussi training, so la formation, sense of purpose and belonging. Oui.
Donc, qu'est-ce qui serait le focus de votre conversation avec un nouvel employé? Parce que tous nos employés ont des besoins différents. Et puis, en tant que gestionnaire, c'est important d'avoir l'attention sur qu'est-ce qui devrait être le focus de la conversation carrière avec selon les besoins de l'employé en question. Fait que là, on a parlé du nouvel employé. Where do they see themselves in 10 years? Ses intérêts, ses forces, self-awareness, where to find resources. Absolutely. Anything that has to do with onboarding career talks, basically. It's onboarding to the public service, onboarding to your organization, onboarding to your team, and also onboarding to self-awareness and onboarding to take an ownership for their career development. Any questions that's linked to this onboarding career talks will be with new employees.
Prochain.
The employee that we refer to as the wanderer. L'abeille qui butine d'une fleur à l'autre. What would be the focus of the conversation here? The employee that's wandering aimlessly.
Not sure.
Qui vagabonde. What would be the focus? What is their goal they want to accomplish? I'm not sure if this one was for new employee. This one is hard. Yes.
Yes.
This one is hard. So the employee that's sort of wandering.
Self-awareness. Yes. Oh, yeah.
So, understanding why, smart goals, and emotional intelligence. What work gives you energy?
Good question. Si vous voulez justement avoir des conversations qui ont un impact, de faire cet exercice-là comme on est en train de faire, de se questionner avant la conversation, de dire c'est qui l'employé que j'ai en avant de moi, vous allez ajouter beaucoup de valeur à vos conversations parce que vous partez de la personne qui est en avant de vous et de son expérience et de vos observations. Objective, maybe offer coaching, yes. Yeah. Tough one. So we'll go to the next one. This one seems to be tough.
Yes, absolutely. But we see our colleagues, especially if they've been in the public service for a while and they're sort of waiting. They haven't sort of taken ownership of their career development. They're sort of waiting to see where things will go. It's really just supporting them in identifying who they are, their interests, and aligning that to a plan. Aligning that to where they feel that they want to be going. The disengaged employee. What would be the focus of a career conversation with a disengaged employee? Remember, I'm known to be hard. These questions are hard. What motivates you? Exactly. Going into the drivers, what their drivers are, what their interests are, what motivates them, what their superpowers are, and how they can best align, and how they're perceiving that they can really contribute to the organization. So it's really about finding what sparks their fire.
Très bonne question en ligne.
What would be the focus of the conversation with your contingency workforce, your term employees, your temporary folks? We had some examples in the chat before. I was a casual, and therefore my manager didn't have any career conversations with me. What would be the focus there? They're hard, aren't they? That their work is being noticed, to see if they're interested to join in the public service. Transferable skills to other programs, absolutely. Having that sort of informational role, asking questions around their interests to see how they can see their next steps in terms of their careers, and showing an interest in who they are and what they expect.
I see job security, and that's a good one, Jamie, but ask them, what do they believe job security is? For some people, it would be to have a permanent job, but for others, job security will be different. So get back to the definition of the person in front of you.
Especially as we align with the future of work, and some employees really are seeking to we're seeing more and more employees joining in the public service and then going to the private sector, then coming back to the public service and going. So that sort of security of employment is more linked to the security of their satisfaction, the security that they're driving their next decisions. For some people, that job security is the golden handcuffs of the public service. And some of them become disengaged employees because they don't see how they fit, and they don't see where their place is in this big organization, but it pays the bill, and we have great benefits. And so that's where it's about that values-based discussion. What are they expecting to accomplish? Yes. Vas-y, le prochain. Racialized and marginalized employees. What would be the focus of your conversations there? And here it's certainly not to put everyone in the same basket, because we know that, I mean, like all of the examples I'm providing, like I mentioned before, every individual is unique, and every individual brings their whole set of considerations. But as a manager, what could be the focus of the conversation at this time in our society, in our public service, when we have employees that self-identify, that share with you, that and they want to have those further conversations, and you're having those further conversations with racialized and marginalized employees. What could be the focus of those conversations? Les défis rencontrés, seeing if you can find solutions together.
Oui.
Ask them how they're feeling, if they're feeling affected, if they want support, and what type of support they feel they want. Some managers are telling me that they don't want to have these conversations because they're afraid. They're afraid to set up expectations that they can't deliver on. They tell me that they don't want to have these conversations because they don't know what the systemic barriers are, and they don't know how to solve it, and they don't know what the answers are. So it's taken a lot of responsibilities on your shoulders as managers to think that you have to have the answers, and to think that you have to know what the next steps are. But les exemples qu'on a ici, être à l'écoute, trouver des solutions ensemble, getting a deeper understanding of what those systemic barriers are. Awareness as a manager. Ask them about it.
Oui, puis je vois ici quelqu'un qui mentionne c'est délicat et le terrain est glissant, donc on n'ose pas aller là et c'est vrai, mais on doit y aller. Je pense que c'est ça que l'appel à l'action du greffier nous dit. C'est fini le temps qu'on ne peut plus y aller. On doit vraiment les adresser et de l'adresser avec l'employé, même si c'est fait maladroitement, on va apprendre là-dedans, puis de s'ouvrir et d'être prêt à apprendre avec cet employé-là. Je crois que c'est ça qui vient aider la personne. Donc, de démontrer notre vulnérabilité par rapport au sujet et d'être prêt et d'être ouvert à apprendre, à changer nos mots s'il faut, à changer nos termes, à s'excuser. Il n'y a rien là de s'excuser, de dire « je suis désolée, je ne pensais pas que ma question pouvait t'atteindre de cette façon. » Donc, de quelle façon est-ce qu'on peut travailler ensemble? Donc, c'est vraiment ça, l'inclusion. C'est de justement pas ignorer les enjeux et de les adresser comme on peut. Donc, avec des sessions de sensibilisation et tout, ça, certainement, ça peut aider. Rachel, moi, je vois le temps qui passe. J'aimerais peut-être qu'on...
Moi, j'allais pour dire, on peut juste passer les mettre sur l'écran. On va pas faire l'exercice dans le chat. I think that we got you into the mindset of recognizing that, okay, not every career conversation will be the same, will have the same focus. So we have employees that are caregivers, adventure seekers, those that want different opportunities in different organizations. How do you support them? Your students, your mountain climbers, those who do want to climb up that corporate ladder, how do you support them? The engaged employee check in regularly and get out of their way. Basically is what we share with managers. Check in, encourage them, be the cheerleader, and get out of their way. The new parent, what are some of the considerations there? The deep diver, the one who wants to be a specialist and who wants to really get to be an expert in their field. And those who are ready for advancement, those that are pre-retirement. It broke my heart when I heard that the retirement sessions at the Canada School of Public Service were no longer being offered because it's not considered core business. Preparing for every stage of your career and preparing for retirement and sharing that corporate knowledge, that knowledge transfer that is so essential to the benefit of our organization, is a key career driver in our organization. So having those discussions and keeping those employees engaged until the very last day that they're with the public service, so that they can potentially even return to the public service as consultants, as we know a lot of them do, because we need that expertise, we need that commitment and that experience in our organization. So every stage and every role that employees have, you as a manager, you will shift your focus of the career conversation to adapt to their specific needs.
And then, of course, there is the intersectionality. So don't forget that they can tick more than one box here.
Absolutely.
Donc, comment mener des conversations de carrière dans ce cas-là? Vous allez trouver plusieurs étapes. So there's many different step-by-step approach out there. Everybody can Google, career conversation and find out what works best for them. But at the end of the day, a conversation is a conversation. Donc, ce qu'on fait, c'est on se prépare. Donc, il y a une préparation qui se fait. Donc, on commence à créer un espace de confiance. Ensuite, il faut développer certaines habiletés de coaching grâce à un questionnement efficace. Puis on va vous donner des exemples de questions dans les prochaines diapos. Ensuite, le coaching, c'est beaucoup d'être orienté vers les actions, vers les solutions. Donc, ici, on veut orienter les objectifs par l'apprentissage et le développement et, bien entendu, avoir des conversations de suivi. Donc, c'est vraiment les étapes les plus simples qu'on peut vous donner. We didn't want to suggest a lot of step-by-step, so you would be stressed of forgetting the steps or stuff like that. So really just approach this as being a conversation. This is just interpersonal relation, and this is what it is. So a few of the basic stuff. Donc, la première étape, c'est vraiment de créer un espace de confiance. C'est ce qu'on appelle en anglais aussi le safe space. And that doesn't happen just in one sitting. I'm not creating my safe space by saying, okay, I'm inviting you and you're welcome to share with me what you have to offer. This is a trust building. This is where you will work maybe with your employee for many months before to prepare, to have that safe space. You will have career conversations that might not be as open as you would like to start with, but continue to work on that safe space and they will open up eventually. Donc ici, c'est pour créer ce climat-là, ce qu'on dit qui est bien de faire, c'est justement de donner la permission aux employés d'être qui ils sont durant cette rencontre-là et de créer cet espace de confiance-là. Souvent, les habiletés qui sont associées à un gestionnaire qui peut créer un espace comme ça, c'est surtout des gestionnaires qui sont réfléchis, qui sont authentiques et qui sont attentionnés. Donc, de se permettre comme gestionnaire de nous aussi venir à la table avec la personne qu'on est, comme nous sommes, dans toute notre vulnérabilité et de démontrer que nous aussi, on est là, nous aussi, on fait des erreurs et qu'on apprend ensemble. Donc, construire la confiance, être honnête, être transparent. Comme gestionnaire, c'est vraiment des éléments clés pour bâtir un espace de confiance. Setting up the stage.
Some of the behaviors. Natalie, I'll help you out here. I think your voice. So setting up the stage, the safe space behaviors that we expect to see. It's really a skill to ask open-ended questions. But I'm sure you've seen through your coaching conversation that you've had this week, or you'll have next week, or in the past coaching summit that you've attended, and some of the sessions that you've attended. Open-ended questions, knowing your limits. The difference between a career coaching conversation as a manager is staying at the level where the employee is comfortable answering. As soon as the employee really doesn't know, really needs sort of that more therapeutic counseling approach, that's where you need to refer. And then maybe you refer to a career counselor or other services depending on the needs of the employee. But if you're not comfortable yourself and the employee's not comfortable, then just address that and say, okay, I think that we've reached, the level of comfort for both you and I, and at this time, let's stay on the safer grounds for us, and maybe invite them to seek other services as needed. Listen carefully. So many times I've heard employees say, yeah, I was scheduled to have a career conversation or learning plan conversation or talent management conversation, performance, and the manager was distracted. that really hurts. Solution-oriented, that's the principles of coaching. We're not there to return to the past and find what created the issues that the employees are facing today, but really trying to stay focused on, so how can we together find, how can I give support to you? What would be helpful for you? What would be, so that next step, that future-oriented approach, that solution-focused based questioning. Resist imposing your own career motivators. We see that so often, and it's so tricky. And it goes with the next one: checking in with your biases, because we all have our ways and our influencers when it comes to career development, and we had that in the chat before in terms of what your values are and what your motivators are. And for some, it may be things like job security. For some, it may be things like having the title. That for some, it may be there's so many variables that can influence what the motivators are. So it's making your parents proud, or proving yourself to someone. Those could be motivators for making career decisions. Some it could be, before we used to have, I just didn't want to be stuck in traffic for an hour and a half, so I didn't accept that position. It can be things like that will have an impact on the career decisions of individuals. So now we're going to go into the meat of it. We're going to give you examples of effective questioning when it comes to career conversations. So we've talked about self-awareness before as being a pillar and a foundation for career conversation. Values, interests, strength, competencies, which I refer to superpowers, and career goals. Here are some examples of questions relating to values. What do you value most in your job? What kind of work environment is attractive to you? Here are some examples of questions linked to interest. What would you like to do more of? Imagine if you were asked that. What would you like to do less of? And how can we work together to make that happen? What are some of the questions linked to strength and competencies? What are your strengths? What are your superpowers? What are your transferable skills? Where do you contribute most? When are you in flow? That concept of flow, which is the foundation for everything we do. Where do you feel alive? And your career goals. Where do you see yourself in 6 months? And I know that that's your typical question, and most people hate it. And it's a myth that career counselors, that's all we do is, okay, you need to have your plan for the next 6 months and you're expected to know the future today. That's absolutely not true. When we say, where do you see yourself in 6 months? We don't expect the answer. I never expect someone to tell me, oh, I'm a PM3 and in 6 months I see myself as a PM4, and I go, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means. Explain it to me as though I wasn't in the public service. Who do you want to be in 6 months? Who do you want to be in a year from now? And what are you doing today to get you there?
Et une fois que vous avez eu ces conversations-là et que l'employé a été en mesure d'identifier certains aspects, c'est maintenant le temps d'orienter les actions vers l'apprentissage et le développement. Et souvent, le plan d'apprentissage, on va demander, OK, bien, quelle formation, qu'est-ce que tu aimerais? Et on est habitué d'avoir un plan d'apprentissage basé sur ce qu'on est moins bon dedans. So we are building our learning plan based on our weaknesses or our challenges. Well, if you're to have that employee for 2 years, you want to have that employee using their superpower. So you want them to develop those superpower. Why are you going to waste time developing weaknesses for 2 years and then, they will leave to go somewhere else? Because guess what? If they're weaknesses, it's probably because they have no interest in that area. So making them work on their weaknesses, you might actually, in fact, demotivate the employee instead of motivating them through learning. So if you want to motivate them with learning and areas of development, well, focus on their superpower, and that's the key here. And that's when we're talking about talent management in a public service, this is what it is. what's their talent and how can they contribute to your team using their talent. So, ici, on a le plan d'apprentissage, des questions, puis aussi des zones de développement, parce que parfois, un super pouvoir peut aussi être une zone de développement parce que ça peut devenir quelque chose que l'employé vient découvrir dans votre équipe, que « Wow, je suis bon là-dedans, donc je devrais peut-être le développer encore plus. » Donc ça ici, c'est des exemples de questions que vous pouvez utiliser. Au niveau des conversations de suivi, c'est exactement les conversations-là qui vont vous aider à créer l'espace de confiance. Si l'employé voit qu'il y a un suivi qui est fait, que vous prenez ceci au sérieux, il va continuer de s'ouvrir à vous. So if they see that you're coming back on it, that you're following up, that you're getting back to them with their questions that they have, and that they see that your action matches actually what you preach, this is where you will gain confidence, and this is where they will open up. So don't neglect those follow-up conversations because they're a key piece here in building that safe space. So really have those informal follow-up, but make sure that they are not in your biolats. Make sure to set a time exclusively for that. Because, you know, in biolats, you open the door, you might have, 15, 20 minutes. And if they start talking about their career, you might not have enough time and you don't want to cut them, So have exclusively a meeting invite to talk about their career. One tip here, maybe let them know what you will talk with them. Just don't send an Outlook invitation saying, discussion about your career. That could be stressful, if they were not expecting it. So make sure to put a little bit more context into it and let them know that, you're really there to discuss with them.
And you're making it sound as though, it's things that you should be doing and it's things that, it's best practices. I'm a manager. I know the reality of struggling to find time. I know that, I'm a cordonnier mal chaussé qu'avec les meilleures intentions du monde, je pratique pas nécessairement tout ce qu'on dit ici. But I say that to my employees. I share that with my team and say, I'm trying to support you. What do you need from me? How can we continue this conversation in a time that we'll set aside specifically for this? So not brushing them off, but trying to setting the stage, but also setting the time in the agenda. But I know that sometimes it can be challenging. We have so many multiple hats as managers. But for me, I'm so passionate about this. I'm so passionate about the fact that this role is so critical and these conversations are so critical, that it's the link to all the different components of our responsibilities as managers. That's why we're so happy to be invited to share this with you today. So some key takeaways from today: career development is a shared responsibility. I think we've discussed that quite a bit today. Employees are career owners, helping them see that, helping them guide them towards that. You yourself becoming a career owner for your own career. Managers as career enablers, and how you can have your mindset and your skills and building that muscle of providing that space and having those career conversations with employees through effective career coaching questions. Career conversations grow talent. And coaching skills are superpowers. So I think that's a great, we didn't even know that we were going to be using superpowers this much throughout the conversation. And I like it because I think it sets the tone to the basics of the career conversations. We're here, co-chairs of the community of practice of career. Vous pouvez nous rejoindre via nos différents réseaux. Voici des ressources et des outils qui sont à votre disposition. We have an exciting news to share. We'll take the last minute that we have to share with you that we've collaborated with the CERIC. Nathalie, si tu veux mettre la prochaine diapo, with the CERIC organization on a tool that's going to be coming soon, which is called Retain and Gain Career Management for the Public Sector, which equips managers for career conversations that grow talent. It's actually a playbook that was developed in collaboration between the private sector, the non-for-profit sector, and for all levels of government, from municipal, provincial, and the federal, and also band councils. So we're really excited to have collaborated with our colleagues on that and to provide managers and employees with a guide that will be available free of charge for download soon. It's planned to come out at the end of May, so we're very excited about that. There are other resources that exist strengthening mental health through effective career development, and also our guide in the community of practice. One of our guides, we have other guides linked to career, but specifically on career conversation. It dates back to 2016. We do have to revamp it. It's on our to-do list as our volunteer work on this community of practice. We're going to get to it. I'm very happy to have had the chance to be here with you all today. Un gros merci Nathalie d'avoir accepté de partager nos expériences ensemble avec ce groupe. And Philippe, un gros merci. And thank you to the organizers of the Coaching Summit France. Je sais que tu es là dans le background. Un gros merci à toi et toute ton équipe for allowing us today to be part of this event and for sharing what we're passionate about, which is career development and career coaching in the public service and building up that superpower for managers to have effective career coaching conversations.
Merci beaucoup. Ce fut un plaisir de passer l'après-midi avec vous. Merci.
Thank you everyone and have a great rest of the day. Merci tout le monde et passez une excellente fin de journée. J'arrête l'enregistrement maintenant, mais vous pouvez rester encore un peu si vous voulez. Puis il va